Hey everyone, Red here, and for today's Rank 1 Mindset, I wanted to have some fun and put the killer that is being featured today in the post. It was more of an experiment as I plan on actually doing maybe some kind of reward with it, but I wanted to have a little bit of fun, and it was awesome reading all the comments and a lot of people reading Oni. I can totally understand why you all thought it was Oni, but the killer is revealed once we begin to remove everything besides the capital letters, revealing none other than Dr. Herman himself. Only 2 of you managed to get it correct this time around, so shoutouts to Devourer of Suns, and of course I'll give it to that Screechy Boy for the dentist comment. Hope you guys had fun with it, and if you want to be a part of the next round, make sure to follow me on Twitter as there will be another tip there before the next Rank 1 Mindset video, and of course that will be in the description below. But hey, let's go ahead and let's get into the gameplay. So getting right into the game, the one thing I want to go over is actually a question I get a lot, and it's why do I take Whispers on the Doctor? And besides the fact that it's just a great informational tool in general, when it's paired with the Doctor's Static Blast, it almost always will guarantee that you will make no survivors scream. It's amazing at finding those first survivors, and even better for closing out a game when there's only 1 or 2 survivors left. I believe this, honestly, to be an S tier perk on Doctor. Because of Whispers here, I can guarantee to get the most value out of my Static Blast. Finding a survivor quick like this is the best way to start a game, as it allows you to lead with pressure rather than missing that Static Blast and having to start your first chase with a gen almost already done because it took you 30 or 40 seconds to find that first survivor. With running Discordance here also allows me to know roughly how much time I have in a chase. As long as 2 survivors on a gen together, I have a ton more time in the game. Discordance can also be a great way for newer or learning killers to know when to break chase. When it pops, you have a very small time to end chase, and if you don't see yourself ending it there, the best thing you can do is break chase and stop that gen from being worked on. Besides using shock therapy to inflict madness, make sure to look to deny vaults or pallets with well-timed shocks. This can ruin survivors' playmaking ability by denying vaults and pallets for a short time after being hit by the shock. This ability alone to shut down survivors on loops is one of the reasons why Doctor can be so frustrating to go against as a survivor. Quick general tip here is always keep an eye on the background. I actually noticed the Jeff here, and it actually gives me a ton of information. The most important piece of information that it gives me though is that there are only 2 survivors that can be on the generator at the moment, and because of Discordance I know that they must be on separate gens, which means I have a lot more time to devote to this one chase. I could now Static Blast here, but if I were Jeff, I would totally be running the opposite way right now. And there are better targets for my Static Blast anyways, and that's the other 2 survivors who are most likely on generators on the other side of the map. So even if he is instantly saved off this hook, I need to stop the current gens from being worked on. Once you play enough with Whispers, you'll begin to understand how far away from a hook you have to be for it to deactivate. Because I already understood this, I knew that Whispers must have been picking up different survivors. Pop Goes Weasel can be a super nasty slowdown perk if you find yourself in chases and getting downs often, which is why this build works so well. Everything is so super synergistic. There will be very little downtime, and you should almost feel like you've been in chases all game. Yeah, honestly, not sure what she was trying to do there, but you know, I never miss a chance for a free hit on some Jane thickness. Again, paying attention to the background allowed me to see Lil Nicky, I mean Quentin back there, heading for the gen that I most recently kicked. This means I know where to go after I get the down on Jane. If you ever feel there might be a survivor lurking, feel free to use a shock therapy to scout out a small area while still moving for your objectives. Never stay in the same place for too long, even if Whispers is going off. Remember, Whispers is 32 meter radius, and that can be a lot of room for hiding for stealth players. Kicking a generator that has a lot of progress while Pop is activated is probably one of the most satisfying things in this game. Look at this Quinn thinking he's a chameleon or something. If you notice a survivor like this, go ahead and act like you're going to an objective like the gen to get yourself closer without them realizing. The best kind of pallet to get hit by is the one the survivor got hit to throw down. I like to sometimes not break the pallet right away in order to get the survivor to run the loop rather than away from the loop for me to try and save a few extra seconds on the chase. Now this was a risky swing, but because of the angle that he's at, I actually got auto-pulled to smack the pallet. But you know what? Hell with them pallets, they deserve some dominance as well. If you lose a survivor while breaking a pallet or think you might have lost a survivor in any other reason, go ahead and use your Stag Blast as long as Whispers is on to relocate them while making sure they don't gain too much distance. This is exactly how you want the early game to go. Getting a few downs and hooks early game while you still have 5 gens can really help out later when you need to get a player out of the game. Because I recall the gen in the distance being worked on quite a bit, I know it's a great place for my pop to go and to find another survivor. This is actually a risky play overall, as I opt to go for the Quinn because I believe that if there was another survivor in the area, that they would be the most likely one to go for the save. This can easily backfire if there's another survivor here to finish the gen before I can get back and get pop on it. Since I now have another survivor going on hook, I might as well use pop quickly here on this gen to make sure not to waste any value from the perk. Getting back to the almost finished generator is a top priority now since the other survivor has been saved, and I don't want to leave the generator 99 if I can help it. Especially since it's part of my 3 or 4 gen, which is one of the last defenses a killer can have if a game goes sour. I mean, look at this discordance value. I immediately know where to go, and I know that I'll be able to get pressure on more than one survivor. Doctor already has a built-in slowdown mechanic, which is insane when you have a constant feed of information that Whispers and Discordance can offer. Jeff is running to the generator by itself, and that has Shack right next to it, so I definitely can't afford to spend time in that area, but I can predict that someone's gonna be going for the save. So for anyone who thinks that I can be pretty brutal with survivors from time to time, keep in mind that I'm 100% aware that Quinn is here and I could go for him, and I'm also aware that there is no decisive strike on this team. I could go for the Quinn who was just unhooked, but I actually opt to go for Steve to give Quinn a chance. This is killer kindness that I give most games, but it's also technically the wrong play, and the right play would actually be downing Quinn again for a second hook because it's going to generate a ton of pressure. Being even a moment late on your shock like I am here can actually cost you a bit more time, so make sure to get the timing down and to stop the survivors from actually getting to that vault. I know some of you are really waiting on a certain phrase here. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. Getting rid of this pallet and breaking chase is actually going to be the best play here, as I'm getting rid of a strong pallet for the future, and wasting more time in this chase could actually really cost me. I really feel like Quinn has just been in the wrong place at the wrong time all game, and it's going to cost him. When hooking, I want to try and keep him in this area or buy a generator that I view as high priority. It will be essentially protecting the generator from being worked on, as most survivors will go for the save before working on the gen. Steve's loud ass moan lowers his stealth attempt to a natural 1, and I punish him equally for it. Having 2 survivors hooked in the same area can create a ton of pressure, especially if a killer proxy camps both hooks. Proxy camping is essentially staying a distance away to allow for a potential save, but never really leaving the area. By the way, not sure why my game does this every now and then, but it'll just totally lag at this point. Using a Stag Blast here allows me to put Jane and Quinn into Madness Tier 3, which means they will both have to calm themselves before self-healing or working on a generator. This just buys more time for the game. Noticing Jeff provides the information that no survivor is currently on a gen and that they will most likely group heal by the recent hook. This would have been a great time to actually look for a slug play since the hook is actually a distance away, but because I feel in control of the game, I actually go for the immediate hook instead. When not running barbecue and chili, you really have to put yourself into survivors' shoes to dictate where their locations might be. Shock therapy can be used to stop healing and unhook, so make sure to make the most of it. Also, assert that dominance with a big old nope swing to give them that hope, and then take that shit away in your next swing. After asserting some fat dominance, it's time to end this man's game with no survivor code remorse. Now it's back to getting enough distance so I can rely on whispers again, but since I do notice my illusion already, I know that a survivor is semi-nearby. Whenever I see a Jeff walking, I really just picture Bigfoot getting caught. Chasing here would be actually a waste of time, so I opt to go for Jane and the illusion points her direction out for me. Oh, and because I'm a man of my word, I made sure to assert that dominance 2 times, just enough to give Jeff's butt a little zap before I put him down into the dirt. I don't want to hook Jeff nearby just in case he dies on hook or I get the other survivors down. I want to make sure I have enough available hooks on this side of the map to hook other survivors without them wiggling off, as this map can be notorious for horrible hook placement. If you have a moment of downtime and no gens are being pressured, it's a great time to remove some thrown pallets from the map. Whisper shines pretty well here as I'm using it to check gens from afar, and even when I start my Static Blast, I realize it turns off, which allows me to cancel it and not waste the Static Blast. The screams from survivors can actually be a little misleading, so if you're having a hard time finding the survivor right away, make sure to keep track of where and how they ran after the scream for next time. If a survivor is successful in getting away, they almost always will take the same route next time, so we can use this later in the game. Discordance popping means it's time for me to leave this area even though Whispers is still going off. Without Discordance going off or general knowledge on when to give up looking for a survivor, one could waste a ton of time here and not even realize it. I decided to chase Jane here because I want Thick Jesus to return to the generator for easier tabs on later, and the generator has a ways to go before it's completed. Jane running back this way is actually a very common mistake. She should have actually led me away from the generator and not in its direction. Be careful in this scenario as Jeff has a better understanding and is leading me away from not only the half-finished gen, but also away from the 3 gen in total. Spend less time during chases like this, especially if it's getting close to the wire. Unless, of course, you're feeling confident the game is already heavily in your favor. And yes, I asserted some dominance there a moment ago. 3 times. 3 times for you people. This is also pretty risky as I've already wasted quite a bit of time on him and I notice he's already at the pallet. Overall, this is a mistake that most players make and even the best killers in the game will make it, but it's good to realize when you do so that way you can correct it, and that's why I point out my own mistakes in these videos. I was actually giving up the chase here after realizing the time that I had just wasted, but thankfully Jeff was running in the direction of the generator that I needed to check on, so keeping an eye on him and looking for an easy down if it arises is the best play. With a well-timed shock therapy, I'm actually able to deny the vault and end this chase. Overall, I'm pretty lucky that I didn't lose this generator in the process of this chase, so again, I can't stress enough on the importance of chase time. With 2 survivors left, Whispers is going to make a world of difference when it comes to the standard hide-and-seek format that the game can become at this point. I know that this Static Blast is going to hit Steve and I know what direction he's going to be running, so I'm able to make sure to be focused and see him, that way I can make a prediction to cut him off. With 2 survivors remaining and 2 gens still up, I can dedicate myself fully to this chase without a worry of losing the game. A well-timed dead hard will buy Steve enough time to get to the pallet. This was a quick in the moment mistake as I thought I had seen Steve turn in to run the loop in this area, but since Jane is clearly by the gen on the other side, I'm not really losing anything, but this could actually be a very hurtful mistake in the early game. Breaking chase to stop a gen from being completed is always a good habit to have down. Since I have focused this side of the map for majority of the game, I've essentially turned it into one giant dead zone, meaning Jane has nowhere to go other than the hook. Steve's scream actually makes it pretty easy on where he plans to go after I finish off Thickness Everdeen here. Scratch marks on the walls in the distance confirm his location. Now I just hope that Hatch doesn't spawn right underneath of him. Because I have illusionary pallets, I can see where he is heading and make Steve believe it's a real pallet by charging up my shock therapy, and this is another neat little trick with illusionary pallets that I didn't get to really demonstrate too much this game, so it was nice to get at the very end. This was a fun game overall and can really show the power behind Doctor and the build itself. Of course, not all survivors were super respectful of the build and the game, so there's some salt and talk of me using some crutch perks, so I'll let this play out and I'll also ask only one question, and that's going to be, what do you believe is a crutch perk? Other than that though, I hope you found this video fun and entertaining. Hopefully it showed up some educational purpose as well. If so, make sure to leave a like and a subscribe to keep up with future content. For everyone who would like to be a part of the stream, remember it's going to be Thursday at 1 PM Eastern Daylight Time. If the stream does really well, I might have to make room for a few nights a week to continue it. I'm really excited to see everyone there and get to streaming again. It's something that I really love to do, but it became extremely hard to manage with the full-time job. I hope you all drive your survivors into madness in your next games, and as always, I'm Red, and I'm signing off.
It's time.